All right, today we're breaking down a really fascinating story about a massive, under-the-radar event that happened in the silver market. We're talking about one of the biggest banks in the world and a single, curious move they made. A move that might just reveal a huge crack at the very foundation of the precious metals system.
So this is the central mystery, right? How does 13.4 million ounces of silver that's supposed to be there, under the control of a giant like JP Morgan, just vanish? And we're not talking about a huge heist with trucks and guards. No, this was a quiet disappearing act, done with a simple accounting change. To figure out how they did it, and maybe more importantly why they did it, we've got to first understand the very strange, two-faced world where silver is even traded.
So yeah, it turns out the entire story really comes down to this one fundamental conflict. See, there isn't just one silver market. Oh no, there are two completely different worlds of silver existing at the exact same time. And understanding how they interact, well, that's the key to this whole puzzle.
Okay, so on one side, you've got the paper market. This is the world of futures, of contracts. It's the market that sets the daily price of silver you see on TV. But here's the thing. It's not really a market for silver. It's a market for bets on silver. It's a highly leveraged game where there can be hundreds, literally hundreds of paper claims for every single real, physical ounce of metal. Then, on the other side, you have the physical market. You know, actual bars, actual coins, the real deal. This world isn't about bets. It's about physics. You have to actually mine it, and there's only so much of it. The paper market might set the price, but the physical market, that's where the truth is.
And this quote really sums up the whole alleged strategy, doesn't it? It's like a 1-2 punch. First, you use the paper market to push the price down. You can flood the market with paper promises for silver you don't even have, and poof, the price drops. Then, once the price is artificially cheap, you use your other hand to go into the real market and buy up all the physical metal at a huge discount. A discount you basically just created yourself.
Now, before you write this all off as just some wild theory, you have to look at the facts. In 2020, JP Morgan paid a staggering fine. We're talking $920 million. And what for? For admitting to a years-long scheme of manipulating the precious metals markets. So this idea of using paper to rig the game? Well, it's not speculation. It's documented history. It's a proven playbook. So keeping that history of manipulation in mind, let's look at the specific mechanism at the heart of our story. It's been called the Comex shell game. And it's a really sophisticated game of perception, all played with inventory numbers. And it all comes down to two, frankly boring-sounding terms that, well, they mean absolutely everything.
Okay, first up is registered silver. This is the important stuff. This is the pile of silver sitting in Comex vaults that is officially available for delivery. If you show up with a contract and say, "Give me my metal," this is the pile they take it from. So here's the key takeaway. This number, the registered number, is the only one that truly matters. It's the only pile of silver that's actually backing that massive mountain of paper promises.
But, and this is a huge but, sitting right next to it in the very same vaults is something called eligible silver. Now, it's the exact same kind of silver bar, same purity, everything. But here's the critical difference. It's not for sale. It's privately owned. It's completely off limits and cannot be used to settle a contract. So while it makes the total inventory number look huge, in reality, it's just for show. In a crisis, that silver might as well be on the moon. This bank vault analogy really makes it crystal clear. Imagine you walk into a bank. The registered silver, that's the cash in the teller's drawer and in the main vault. It belongs to the bank and it's there to pay out to depositors. The eligible silver, that's like the gold and jewelry locked away in someone's private safety deposit box. Sure, it's in the same building, but the bank has no right to touch it. The shell game is getting everyone to look at the total value of everything in the building instead of just the cash the bank can actually use.
Okay, so now that we get the difference between what's really for sale and what's just sitting there, we can finally see exactly what happened. Let's look at the moment the silver vanished.
All right, take a look. This is the before picture. This chart represents the entire global pool of registered silver. You know, the good stuff, the silver that's actually available to back the market. And you can see JP Morgan has a pretty significant slice of that pie. At this point, their silver is on the table, part of the public promise.
And then, it happened. In one single day, with just a quiet bit of paperwork, no press release, no flashy headlines, JP Morgan made a change. They reclassified a massive chunk of their silver. They moved it from the public registered column over to their private eligible column. The physical silver bars probably didn't even move. It was just a keystroke, a change in a database. But in that instant,
all that silver went from being publicly available to privately untouchable. And boom, here's the result. Look at the chart. The entire pie of available deliverable silver just shrank. JP Morgan's slice is gone. It's not part of the public pool anymore. That foundation that backs the entire market just got significantly smaller, all because of one quiet little move.
The visuals are powerful, for sure, but to really grasp the scale of this, we need to look at the hard numbers. This is where it gets really eye-opening.
So let's set the baseline. Before this move, the total amount of registered silver, again, the only stuff that really counts, in all the Comex vaults across the entire planet was 150.2 million ounces. That's it. That was the whole pot, the entire world supply of exchange-ready silver. And out of that global total, how much did JP Morgan reclassify in that single day? 13.4 million ounces. Just one bank, one move. They took 13.4 million ounces and moved it behind a velvet rope, from public and available to private and untouchable.
This chart really drives the point home. That big bar, that's the entire global supply we just talked about. And that second bar, that's the piece JP Morgan just took off the table for itself. You can see right there, this wasn't some minor day-to-day inventory adjustment. This was a huge strategic withdrawal of physical metal from the public market.
And that brings us to what might be the most jaw-dropping number in this whole story. That one move, that 13.4 million ounces, was 8.9% of the entire world's registered silver supply. Let me say that again because it's kind of hard to believe. In a single day, one bank made nearly 9% of all the exchange-available silver on Earth just vanish from the public market. That's not a small adjustment, that's a tectonic shift.
So, okay, that brings us to the real question, doesn't it? The billion-dollar question is, why? Why on earth would they do this? And to answer that, we have to look not just at what they did, but when they did it, because the timing here is everything.
I mean, just think about it logically for a second. If you're a big bank and you're trying to calm down a nervous market, what do? You show strength, right? You would move more silver into the public registered category to prove you have the goods. But they did the exact opposite. They took a huge chunk out of the public supply, making an already tight market even tighter. Why?
Well, it turns out this didn't happen in a vacuum. This move happened right at the height of the whole silver squeeze movement. At the same time, there were reports everywhere about huge stress in the paper markets. And get this, around that same time, there's a super unusual 10-hour trading halt on the CME platform. You add all that up, and it's a pretty clear signal the system was under serious strain.
And this quote really puts a fine point on it. It's like seeing somebody boarding up the windows on their house right when the hurricane warning starts blaring on the TV. It's not an aggressive move, it's a defensive one. It's someone getting ready, battening down the hatches, and protecting their own stuff because they see a big storm coming.
So, here's the conclusion from the source material. When you put all the pieces of this puzzle together, the documented history of manipulation, the shell game between registered and eligible, the sheer scale of this withdrawal, and the incredibly suspicious timing, you get a pretty clear picture. The argument is this: when the biggest players in the paper game, the ones who benefit from it the most, start quietly taking their own real physical chips off the table, it's a pretty strong signal they might be getting ready for that game to end.
And that really leaves us with the one big lingering question at the heart of all this. It's the question that this whole story is really about. What happens when all those mountains of paper promises finally slam up against the hard, unchangeable reality of physical limits? What happens then?